this in their mind. Our kids may struggle in certain categories. One of those categories may be organization. Organization is not seen as my kid can't be organized. Organization is seen as I can be organized, I just struggle with managing the organizational structures. Meaning I can start the year off, my book bag's neat, my binder's neat, I got all my classes organized in separate color-coded systems. Within a month, everything is everywhere. So I can be organized. I struggle with the management system of staying organized. Impulse control. As a child, that may look like maybe the temper tantrum, right? Or it may look like the hyperactivity in ADHD. It's reacting first, thinking later. As an adult, it's more passive, less observable. But it's still just as meaningful. Because if I lack impulse control, then I lack the ability to manage the thoughts that flow through my head that say, I would rather be playing Xbox than starting my responsibilities that are sitting in front of me. Right? The impulse to do what feels good and not what's necessary. Impulse control. Planning, prioritizing. That can be a real challenge for a lot of children. You can test that by giving a project and seeing how they manage the flow of that project. But as you can imagine, planning and prioritizing have a close relationship with organization. Task initiation, this is, with every kid I work with, this becomes part of the story. The opposite of task initiation, the observable trait of the symptom of task initiation is procrastination. Okay? I struggle with starting something, so I delay, also known as procrastination. Right? It's a big deal. They will all admit it. Once I get started, I'm good. I hear it all the time. Once I get started, I'm good. I just don't get started, so I'm never good, right? But that's a big deal. Flexibility, cognitive flexibility is the ability to shift perspectives and plans based on new information. That's addressed individually. Some kids don't really necessarily have a clear issue with that, meaning the symptoms of it aren't necessarily manifesting in significant ways. Others, it's a big deal. Meaning if things aren't their way, they explode. Because their perception on how it should be is the only perception that matters. And that can be obviously problematic. So that cognitive flexibility, the word for it is rigidity. Being too rigid in their thought patterns. Emotional self-control. Impulse control, emotional self-control also have a strong relationship to each other. Emotional self-control as a child is the temper tantrums, right? Or as an adult or a teenager, it's an adult temper tantrum. But it's still the inability to self-regulate and pay attention to when I'm at a 5, 6, 7, and 8, and the strategies that I need to use to bring myself back down. The other way to see emotional self-control is, again, doing what feels good and not necessarily what's necessary in the moment. Coping strategies around anxiety, handling stress, all can fall into this category. Self-monitoring the other word for that is problem solving. Some kids, some children don't ever want to look at their grades because having to look at their grades requires something they don't want to do. And that's self-monitor their progress. Because then they have to problem solve and initiate action to rectify something that may have gone wrong. And they'd rather avoid that altogether, out of sight, out of mind. Because that category is a hard one. It requires a real mental fortitude to start to sit down and plan, look backwards, to reflect, and then look forward to future plan. Working memory. By the end of the day, many of our children have a fuel tank of working memory at a negative. They have held it together. They have maximized their brain power to get through the day. When they get home, they need to refuel somehow. And it's not refuel meaning eat. They need to refuel working memory so that they can then sit and attend to another hour of work. Stress, anxiety exacerbate the symptoms of working memory deficits. Okay? The school day can exacerbate the symptoms of working memory deficit. Research will show that sleep is one of the best ways, and exercise is one of the best ways to refuel. And so this is a big one. It requires tender, loving care, because that's something that isn't necessarily easily developed. It's not a skill that can be, typically a sticky note is like the best solution for an adult with working memory deficits, right? Just write shit down, right? Put in a sticky note, right? Working memory solution provided, right? I put in a sticky note. I got sticky notes all over my house, reminding me of everything I need to do, right? But we'll talk about how to support working memory through just structure and routines and predictable rhythms. This part of the brain is a traffic control tower. Everything flows through it, which is why we don't look at homework alone. Because you want to build skills in anything, you have to look at as many opportunities to build those skills as possible. We typically give 1 point of failure when we want to build executive function deficits, and that 1 point of failure is homework. Right? That becomes part of the problem. But if we start to see this through a different lens, we understand that we can help our children build skills by looking at all opportunities throughout their life, meaning their day, to manage, to plan, to organize, to problem solve.